The case is done now, and we ought to focus on this being an example of using materials that the client already has to make a story for them. And it doesn't always happen, but it happened again in this case that we already had the tools at hand to support our attorney's contention, and the he came to us, of course, initially wanting an animation. It was a plane crash. He wants some animation. That would help him tell the story. It turned out we didn't need that because the plaintiff gave us materials with which to do that. So I'll do this real quickly. A small airplane crashed at this rural airport in Arizona, and it crashed because he ran into a power line that's back here along the north end of the runway, marked by these two orange markers that say, you know, hey, there's power lines here, fly clear of them. The pilot failed to do it. Our attorney represented the electrical utility who maintained these power lines. And the pilot, of course, sued the electrical utility. It said, you put electrical lines in my way and they weren't properly marked, so it's your fault that I crashed my airplane. And here's the layout of this little runway. It's a rural, privately owned runway out in the country. And road across here has the power lines running parallel to it. So that's kind of the layout. Our landing aircraft was coming in from the north. He snagged the power line with his landing gear and crashed, and injured himself and his passenger. So here's a close-up. Shows you, this is a photo produced by the plaintiffs to show what the problem was. Here's the markers, but they are below the other two wires here. And when they were initially installed, all the wires were up here and the markers marked all of them at the right altitude. But over years of heat and weight, the marker balls had stretched and caused the wire that was holding them to sag. So this is indeed a problem for the utility. That's in violation of where these markers are supposed to be. They should be at the highest obstruction, and just due to time and stretching of the cable, they've dropped about 3 feet. So the utility was at some risk. So, you know, I mean, they did have some liability. We did the kind of a little measurement here, showed that the top wire was about 23 feet off the ground. The marker wire had sagged about 3 feet. And then there was a ground common line here that really didn't play a role, but it was about 17 feet off the ground. So just to kind of give you an idea of what the situation is. The plaintiffs supplied us with a video. They hired a pilot to land at this airport, and they recorded the video. It's a lovely 4K to the airplane where he flies in over these balls. You can see the marker balls. He flies in and flies over it and lands at the airport because they want to record you know, the environment here. So plaintiffs hired this pilot to fly this. And secondarily, they did a bunch of drone footage. They flew a drone around the north end of this runway, and they tilted down here to show these wires. It's gorgeous footage, and it's very nice stuff that they documented very close up at low altitude, so you could see the relative position of the wires and the markers and the runway. And we have several minutes of really nice drone footage that is, you know, gives you good video documentation or photographic documentation of the environment. So these were the tools that I spotted right away. Let me let this play. That I thought, man, I'm not so sure I need to do an animation, because when I first saw this, I thought, man, maybe we've got a way to tell this story with just the photographs that we can extract from this video, because the drone's flying around every which way. He's got photographs looking at the runway. I mean, they did a nice job, but it turned out to be a negative for them, and I'll show you that in a moment. The other issue with doing animation, of course, is we have neither of these aircraft have recorders on them. Everything is eyewitness or pilot testimony. I was going this fast, I was flying that high, none of which, you know, is sufficient data to base an animation on. So even though our client thought he wanted an animation, there really wasn't a good way to build a data-based animation for this crash. We did a few views for him just to try to support his story. He wanted to, his theory was that if I show the pilot taking off here, you can see the marker balls down here. He should have known that there was a power line there, and so that on his return, he would have been aware of them and taken action to avoid them. But this is really not that useful because the lighting is, is artificial. We can make those balls visible or not. So it was kind of an interesting exercise in geometry, but it wasn't something you could rely on as, yes, you could see it, or no, you couldn't see it. So here's what I did with this. I took the drone footage that they supplied us and moved through it a frame at a time until I selected a few choice frames here, where this one, I chose a frame that the wire with the marker balls on it is on the horizon. So I'm making the premise that we're now looking dead horizontal. And when our attorney, I think, used this to cross-examine the pilot. So the point here is that this is crazy. Nobody would do this. You know, you would not fly this approach because you're going to run into the wire. So nobody would do that. So the next step was to move a little bit up. So I'm going to move till the top wire is on the horizon. And then we're going to mark the position of the balls. And we know, because there's empirical evidence, this pilot crashed. He got in here close enough to snag that top wire with his landing gear. So he was either here or, you know, he was maybe a couple of feet higher. We gave a few options here that we could move and mark, move around. And during his testimony, the pilot could say, well, I was up here, but you can't let him say he was too much higher because we know he crashed. He hit the wire. So somewhere in this point between, totally crazy, nobody do this, to, maybe he would do this or a little bit higher. This is where he was, and he can't say then that, that he was flying in a prudent manner because the plaintiffs themselves provided us a prudent pilot approach in their recorded video. So I'm going to switch over here to the airplane landing video. So keep an eye. I'm going to mark the position of the balls, and I'm going to put the markers in the same position from the aircraft point of view. Here we are. And here's their prudent pilot. He is way above those balls, flying in to land safely at this airport. So they provided us not only the evidence of the accident approach, the careless approach, they also provided us the evidence of the prudent approach and a good visual way to compare. Our guy was down here, not paying attention, being a hot dog pilot, compared with what they have presented as a prudent pilot. You should have been up here. So that's the story.
And what happened with the trial?
I have no idea.
Okay.
They settled.
Ah.
They settled. Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't have to go any further after Gary showed him this.
Yeah, he was
very good, Gary. Very good.
He was real enthusiastic about that. Yeah.
A hoist by his own petard.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and it, like I said, we don't often have that opportunity, but here were the videos of both sides. They're presenting this video to say, look at this, your damn markers are not on the right wire. You know, and that's true. So they had some liability, but also you're flying in here close enough to hit that top wire. You're not making a careful approach. You're making a mistake, as well as evidenced by your own prudent pilot who was way the hell up here.
It's great.
There. So that was a place where we got to use that incoming material as is with, you know, really didn't have to do any animation. It was just we did some, you know, we tried it and we made a 3D model of the stuff, but the most powerful story was with their own video frames.
But that you saw that, you were able to understand and see that is what's so great.
Yeah, it was one of those lucky gems.
Yeah, somebody could look at that all day and not put that together, you know? That was brilliant.
Great.
And we definitely remember started down the 3D path of the whole thing.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Because we
Yeah.
thought, well, we'll show you the takeoff views and we'll show you the landing views and stuff. And you know, we immediately, of course, run into the data problem because we can't. The pilot, you know, tells me, you know, the pilot says, "Oh, I was flying at 70 feet." Well, he wasn't. You know, there's empirical evidence that he wasn't. But you know, you can't base an animation on hearsay like that because he doesn't know exactly the altitude. It doesn't know exactly the speed and, you know, all those kind of things. And really
It's not
didn't
like
need
the
that.
black box had it.
Yeah,
So it boils down to those two views.
yeah. And we gave him the option here in this sequence to, you know, he could move him, let him go a little bit further, like, you know, because the story is that if you're at the altitude of the balls, you know, which is right here, you know, you can start with, yes, we agree. Everybody agrees this is stupid. Nobody would do this. That's stupid. So you flow somewhere higher, but you didn't fly that much higher because you did hit the wires. So somewhere around here, or we got a few more frames, I give him a few feet. Say, oh, were you up here? No, you were up here. Maybe you were, you know, because your landing gear hangs down below your airplane. But any of these frames, I can switch to the comparison and say, okay, we'll give you a couple of feet, but your prudent pilot is way up here because I just kept those balls in the same place on screen. So anyway, that's my story.
Excellent.
Cool stuff.